Hello, I'm Rodrigo Cerda, the Minister of Finance of Chile. I would like to talk a little bit about our economic outlook in Chile and to talk about a little about our country. So thank you for joining us and thank you to Invest for having this great meeting. It's very important for us as government, but also as country, to show what we're trying to do here in Chile and how we perform our public policies. So let me talk a little bit about Chile. Well, as any other country, the pandemic has been very important in the last year in Chile, and we have tried to deal with it as good as possible. And one of the things that has happened in Chile is that although we have an increase in the number of cases dealing with the COVID, when we compare with other countries, one of the good things is that the number of cases has not been as large as in other countries. So even though we have some waves of COVID in Chile, at least for the moment in terms of international comparison, we're doing relatively well. And in fact, one of the reasons is that we have been dealing with the pandemic is that we're trying to do our best in terms of vaccination of our people. And in fact, we have a large increase in vaccination of our population in the last few months, and in fact in the last month. As a matter of fact, by the end of February, almost 17% of our population has been already vaccinated against COVID. We think that's great news for our population and of course for our economy. If the more people we have vaccinated, probably the more people will be working and our economy will be growing faster. Part of the work against the pandemic has been vaccination, but also we have dealt with the pandemic by increasing our ICU beds and also by increasing the number of tests we're doing in terms of the pandemics in daily terms. And as we can see in this chart, in fact, the part of or the fraction of the population that has been in terms of lockdowns was very high by June and August, past June and past August, and but now for the moment it has decreased, as we can see in the red area in this chart. So for the moment, we think that we're dealing with the pandemic. It has hit hard our population, but we have tried to done our best with in terms of the work we have done in terms of vaccination, in terms of ICU beds, and in terms of number of tests. Hopefully, we hope our population will be vaccinated at least around 50 or 60% of population by mid-June, and we hope that will be the case, which will ameliorate the economic performance for the rest of the year. And we know that to deal with the pandemic, also we have made a lot of fiscal efforts. Of course, people has remained in lockdown. Some of them has been in a large part of the population has been at their homes and houses, of course. And in that case, obviously, they have been having problems in terms of labor incomes. So we needed to deal with that, and to do that we have make a very big effort in terms of fiscal response. Just to show, one of the reasons we can do that is that we have a fiscal rule that basically what you do is that you save during good times and you use that funds during bad time which is what is happening today. So in terms of fiscal surplus or fiscal deficit, what has happened is that between 2003 and 2009, we have a large fiscal surplus when we have a high copper prices. In that case, we have saved a lot of funds for the future, and now we're using those funds to help our population. So institutional fiscal institution matters, and we're seeing now why they matter. They matter, but because today we're going to help and alleviate the needs of our population. We're of course doing that because we know that what is in the heart of our government is our people, and of course we care and we try to help them. So in terms of fiscal expenditure as fraction of GDP, what we have seen is that the fiscal expenditure that used to be around 20% of GDP, today it has increased to almost 28%. That's a large increase. It's a temporary increase, temporary in the sense that we're using temporary funds to help and alleviate people today. But of course, in the future, once the pandemic is gone, of course, we will try to decrease this fiscal expenditure. So again, what we are seeing is our contracyclical policy, fiscal policy, in which we use our funds when we are in troubles in economic terms. That's what is happening. So in fact, in 2021, Chile will be one of the few, probably the only one of the countries in Latin America in which we are going to have a fiscal impulse, a positive fiscal impulse. In other countries, of course, they have made a lot of effort, but it's more difficult to continue with the fiscal efforts because probably some of them do not have so many savings as we have here in Chile. And also we have savings, but we also have the capacity to increase our debt if we also need to do so. And in fact, even when this is in this chart, what we observe is the path of the fiscal debt as fraction of GDP. Even though as we see some increase in fiscal debt, what we see is that even though in that case, and even though we're having a fiscal impulse, we expect that fiscal debt will converge to numbers around 40% in the next few years. We also think this is a good perspective in terms of fiscal debt, in the sense that when we compare with other countries, of course, our debt is smaller than other countries. That's one of the reason we can have this expensive fiscal policy in Chile. And the reason we have this low fiscal debt, at least in comparative terms, is because we have saved a lot of funds in the past, and when we need, we use some part of the funds, and also we increase in some way our debt. So debt is increasing, but this increase at a reasonable path, and we're expecting it will be converging around 40%, between 40 and 45% of GDP by mid 2025. But in this context, when we're looking to what happened in terms of fiscal packages, Chile, as a fraction of GDP, has been of the largest fiscal packages, and these are numbers from the IMF. So these are numbers that could be compared between different countries. And as we see here in this chart, well, Chile is around the country that has made a larger effort during the last pandemic. Some kind of fiscal effort we're doing is also in the credit market. We know that firms may be credit constrained, or firms may be having problems to have sales, and in this sense, they need some credits to continue working. So that's one of the reasons we're having impulse a program that we call the FOGAPE. The FOGAPE is a credit program for firms in which we have the state behind, and of course in which we have a very low interest rate. And as you can see, commercial loans, once we have the FOGAPE program in, has decreased in terms of growth, but they are still outgrowing, which we think is a good answer for what is happening in our country. So that's pandemics. That's what we have been doing in the last year. But we also need to look more in the medium term, and of course in the Chilean economic fundamentals. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about in the next few minutes. First of all, Chile was a country that was very similar to other Latin American countries, at least by the beginning or the beginning of the 90s. But after that, we can see that Chile, in terms of GDP per capita at least, has increased much faster than the rest of Latin American countries. And now Chile is around, in per capita terms, around $16,000 per capita, while the rest of Latin America is below 10,000 per capita. So we have, in some terms, we have managed to grow faster than the rest of Latin American country, which finally provides a better GDP per capita for our people, which is a better welfare we expect, with better welfare for our people. And one of the key elements behind this increase in GDP per capita and in terms of economic growth path is that Chile is a very open economy. And as such a very open economy, we're an economy in which we compete with our country in the international market, and this competition has provided larger productivity for our firm compared to what we have in the 90s, and in that sense we have been able to increase our GDP per capita. Our export destination is concentrated in China. Almost 40% of our exports are going to China, which in the short term is not a good thing to happen, because in the short term China is starting to grow very fast. But we know that in the long term we also need to have a better diversification of exports, which we are working at least for a while, and we're trying to continue to do. In terms of the region, and when we compare Chile with other countries in the region in terms of the quality of competition and the quality to do new business in Chile, well, you can see that we're using data here for the World Bank, the doing business ranking. Chile stands out in the region and is very similar, is also similar to what is happening on average on the OECD countries. And one of the results is that poverty in Chile, which used to be around 50% of the population by the end of the 80s, today is just less than 4% by 2017. Something similar, not so fast, but also similar, had happened with the Gini index, inequality index, that has lowered from almost 60% by the beginning of the 90s, and today is around 44%. This is the World Bank estimate. So we're a country that has grown in the past year, has a larger GDP per capita compared to our peers, but also that has decreased poverty, and in some way has also decreased inequality. We know that we need to go much faster decreasing inequality, but we do recognize that we have had an an improvement in the last 30 years. In that context, and since Chile is a very open economy, we need to talk a little bit about what is happening in terms of external scenario, relevant scenario for Chile currently in the rest of the world. Okay, and well, we see that usually Chile, and which is on the left-hand side chart, is a country that's growing similar and a little bit faster than the world. So as we expect that the world will be growing around 5 to 6% in this year, so probably Chile will be growing a little faster than that. Okay, so that's what the projection of different analysts is currently looking for Chile. Okay, of course we would like to go faster, but anyway we think that's a interesting number to be growing in this 2021 at 5% or a little much than that. One of the relevant things for Chile in terms of external scenario is our exposition to China, and well, it's not really China, but in fact it's the copper market. Okay, Chile is one of the main export of copper in the world, and of course what is happening with the copper market and the price of copper is quite relevant for us. And what we see here is that, of course, the copper price has been increasing quite fast in the last six months. Okay, so probably that's a good question. It's a good thing for our economy. The question, though, is how long is that copper price being high, and for quite long it will happen. Okay, so probably we'll need to be some cautious about that and to see what is going to happen. But anyway, the copper price when it is higher, this copper price, that's a good news for Chile, because while we have larger fiscal revenues, we have more investment in the mining sector, and of course we have more employment in the mining sector. Okay, those are some qualities of the process that we hope that we're going to see in the rest of the year. But of course, it will depend on the volatility of the copper price. So we have a contraction in Chile, and last year was around 6%. It was a large contraction, but it was some way not as large as some of our peers in Latin America, as you can see in the left-hand side of this graph. And also what we can see on the right-hand side of this graph is that Chile is expected to be one of the countries that will be growing faster in Latin America on the 2021. Okay, we hope that will be the case, and in that case, that will be very good news for our economy. Of course, this is not guaranteed, and we need to work on that. And to be working on that, we have been working on different public policy that will help to happen that growth in the next during this year. We have talked already about the FOGAPE, which is the credit for firms, but also we have some other policies such that very large subsidy for employment, that we're trying to have back our employment as soon as possible, our job as soon as possible, and if needed, we're going to continue doing some different public policies in the future. And of course, well, probably what is interesting though is that even though we have this crisis, and even though we have a large fiscal impulse, what we can see on the right-hand side here is that the sovereign spread for Chile, the CDS, has remained quite low, and is still one of the lowest in our region. Okay, so markets still believe, and of course we do also, but markets still believe that we're one of the safer countries in Latin America, and probably also when we compare with different countries in the world. So what is the economic outlook? We have been talking a little bit about that, just a few more reflections and ideas. Okay. Well, we have been talking about GDP growth, but also one of the things we'll try to do now is to also to improve the performance of the financial sector, and as you can see here in this slide, well, we have imposed at least 20 measures in terms of legislative process to make improvement of the financial sector. Okay, one of those are the authorization of the use of the Chilean pesos in cross-border transaction. Also, we have some simplified procedure for non-resident to obtain tax identification numbers, and the automatic registration of debt security for already enrolled issuers. These are just some of the measures where we have been working on, and just to show us that for Chile and for this minister and this ministry, is very important to improve our financial sector and to mobilize capitals to our economy. Some other initiatives we are working on the financial sector you can see here. We have some of them. Probably one of the most interesting and probably one of the things we're going to be talking in the next few months here in Chile is the fintech regulation and open finance. We have been working on a project of law to provide the regulatory space for open finance and fintech regulation. We have also some other initiatives such as the financial portability that's in some way allow the consumers and some small firms to have a simple process to switch between a financial institution easily, such that you can go to the institution in which you have the lower interest rate for your product. So we think that also those kind of regulation are pro-consumer regulation, and in some way people also will provide more value or will value more what is the financial sector. So inclusion for people in the financial sector is also part of the thing we're working on. And as you can see, and probably also what is happening in the rest of the world, we're seeing an increase on the economic activity. Of course, we have a large decrease by the mid of the last year, but we're starting to see that some of the sector are really improving. One of the is commerce, but also industry is also growing in the last few months. Of course, we're still having some problems in services as the pandemic is still in Chile, and of course that restrict what is the services industry. But we expect that as the process of vaccination continues, we expect that services will be improving in the following month. We also see that people, in terms of firms, is becoming more confident on the economic outlook, and of course this will probably be requiring more investment in the next few months. So we're expecting the country will be growing, but also we're expecting that the investment process is going to be back probably in the next few months in Chile. And we see here another graph in which the retail sales which has a very large impact, almost more than 20% of decrease in some month, has come back to pre-pandemic levels, and also we're currently in some levels also above pre-pandemic. So that's one of the good news. At least retail and some of the sector as starting to coming back to pre-pandemic levels. In terms of confidence measures, as we can see here in Chile, business confidence is already in the positive side, and customer confidence for the moment remains very low, but we expect as people is coming back to their works, and as jobs increase, we expect that consumer confidence will be also in positive terms in the following month. We don't know if it will be as fast as possible, but probably once we'll return to be having large numbers in job creation, that will be the case, hopefully in the next few months. And as you can see, here is the use of what we call the labor protection law. Labor protection law was a law we passed in the Congress during 2020, in which we provide some subsidies for people to remain in their employment, or such that that firms didn't fire those guys. And while we still have having a large extensive use of this program, which was the idea, but probably in the next few months we expect that as the economy resumes growing, and probably growing fast, well, the use of this program, which is a contracyclical program, will be much less. And well, and here what we see in the right-hand side is the labor market. The labor market used to have in Chile almost 9 million people working. Due to the pandemic, that decreased in almost very few months to just 7 million people. So we have a large decrease, almost 2 million people did not work in that period, but we already come back at levels larger than 8 million people. We have, of course, to go back to, we need almost 1 million further of new jobs, and we expect that as the economy resumes in the next few months, well, those jobs will be created as soon as possible. And we are working for that. I mean, we are not just hoping that the economy just create those jobs, but also we are having some subsidy, large subsidy for people to come back to work. We're having subsidies that are of around, at least I would say probably almost 1/4 of the average wage in Chile of subsidy that we're trying to use for people to come back, and for firms to use it and to increase the hire of people in the next few months. Okay. Well, in this context, while the central bank has decreased their interest rate, and they have been using some non-conventional monetary policy, well, the headline inflation and the core inflation is still very controlled and around the 3% target of the central bank, which means that for the moment, at least for the moment, we don't have problems with inflations. And well, as we talk a little bit, the copper price is quite large for the moment, around almost $4 per ton of copper, and that's a large price, which hopefully, if we remain at those levels, we'll have more fiscal revenue to decrease our fiscal deficit that we're for the moment having in the country. Well, here is just some slides concerning, or sort of graph concerning the monetary policy of the central bank. As you can see, the policy rate is quite low. and the real policy rate, which means the monetary policy less inflation, is in negative term since mid-2020. Okay, so we are having also some expansive policy from the central bank, just as we have some expensive policy from the government. Both policies are trying to help the recovery of the economy. And as you can see here, Chile is also an economy that has a mining sector that is large, around 10% of the GDP. So we're seeing that both the mining and the non-mining sector, both are starting to recover in Chile, which provides some path of the recovery that probably will continue in the following months. And just to end up to end up our presentation now, what we see is that the expectation for growth in Chile during the 2021, we can see that while in March 2020 we were expecting just 2% expansion for Chile in the 2021, while as time has gone now on February 2021, while the market is expecting for Chile an increase of more than 5%. We expect to grow faster than that even. We're working for that. We're trying to make our best and to use our public policy to do that. But of course, we need to see what is going to happen in the rest of the year. We are working, hopefully, to grow a little faster than 5%. Okay, so we think that our country is an attractive country, an interesting country in terms of economics, not just due to what is happening in this year or the last year, in which we have some important reaction of fiscal and monetary policy to ameliorate our growth rate, but also because in the medium term we're an economy that we have been growing for at least 30 years, in which we have decreased the inequality and in which we have hopefully increased the welfare of our population. So I hope that you will be interested in Chile, to come here to invest in Chile. We're very much interested in to have here your help also to recover our economy and to build a much more interesting economy in the near future. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening and for your attention for Chile. So I think now we're going to have a little conversation with Mónica Duwe. I don't know if Mónica is around. Yes. Now
yes.
Hi, Mónica.
Minister, first of all, thank you very, very much. It's a pleasure to have you. As you know, Chile Day is an institution that has been around for over 10 years. It's a fantastic and amazing way of putting Chile in the markets, in the ears and eyes of the financial sectors around the world. And we appreciate Invest and everybody of us who works in this sector, your time and your involvement. So basically, I have a couple of questions. The idea is to go a little bit deeper into some of the topics that you mentioned. I wanted to start with the fiscal rule framework. Basically, what you mentioned, and we all know, besides the pandemic, we had some pressure on fiscal policy before because of social unrest. What is your focus and what will be the principal focus of, let's say, the remaining year in the government after the pandemic to basically reach a consolidation or go into the direction of a consolidation?
Well, thank you, Mónica. Well, first of all, just a few ideas on Chile Day. Chile Day, as you mentioned, is an institution that we have been making for 10 years, but it's also interesting that in some way we participate here in the public sector, but it is mainly an initiative of the private sector. And that's another way we do business in Chile. We try to work as possible and as joint as possible the private and the public sector. We know that the public sector in some way we need to provide some stable rules for people to invest, and in that sense, in that spirit, what you do here is to help us to show us to the rest of the world. So thank you very much to you and to the rest of the organization of Invest. And going to your question, of course, one of the pillars of the fiscal institution is to save in good years and to de-save or use those funds in the bad year. That's what is happening today. But of course, we know that probably one of the reasons we have a very low sovereign risk is because our institution is working and should be continue working in the future. To do so, of course, we are trying to have those helps for people today, but we know that those help should be temporary in the sense that in some way those programs, when the economy is growing, when the economy has recovered and so on, when people has their jobs back and so on, of course, part of those programs will not be in place. And of course, in that sense, probably the fiscal increase that we already have seen probably will be in some way set back. That will be occur once the pandemic is gone. Okay, and in that sense, that's probably one of the things that will allow us to stabilize our debt in the near future, because part of this package is completely a temporary package. Okay, of course, one of the second things we're trying to do is that we are trying. Of course, we just have 1 year to go in this administration. We know that, but this administration, and I think in general all the administration in Chile, do not think just in 1 year or the 4 year period, but also in the long run. And in the long run, we also are trying to having some policy that improve our long-term GDP growth. If the growth rate of GDP is larger, of course, we're going to have more fiscal revenue, and this is another way in which we're going to have a fiscal consolidation faster. Okay, so we're also working on those type of initiative. I will expect we are going to see some of that in the next month. As we were talking, one of those initiatives are on the financial sector, of course, but of course there are other very important, such as making faster the investment period in Chile. We're trying to reduce as much as possible all the problems we may have to make investment in Chile and to make it as easier as possible. So, in one hand, the package was temporary. On the other hand, we're trying to increase our long-term GDP growth.
Excellent. And I think a lot of the public policy was in line and very much aligned with what World Funds, OECD, and all the experts recommended during a pandemic. And definitely it showed retail sales were up, which definitely kept part of the economy running. And one of the main things that we are always very conscious about, and I wanted to ask you what your view is on the rating, the sovereign rating. Obviously, long-term stability policy has an impact, and I would like to know, definitely Chile has had the privilege of having a very stable investment grade rating. And this is very relevant, not just for the Republic, but for the public sector companies and every Chilean issuer. What is your view? Have you had any conversations with the rating agencies of what's going on?
Well, it's a very good question, Monica. In fact, there are a few issues in terms of Chile that we haven't been talking about. Probably it's the moment to talk a little bit. One of those has the social pressure we have in terms of that people in October 2019 were in the streets, and the people asked for more public goods somewhere. And the way the political system react does that we're now starting a discussion concerning our constitution. And probably that's also some way to see Chile, in which we can discuss our set of rules, but probably investor and the rest of the world knows or realize that usually in Chile we have those discussions, not the constitution, but any other discussion, and we usually try to finally ending up in a process in which we discuss and we make decision, and when we have done, well, our country remained quite stable. I think we're starting to see that in Chile, and probably also this is another of the reasons that people is looking to Chile and is providing such a very low risk for the public debt in Chile and for the country as a whole. It's not just an economic phenomena, but I think also it's a social phenomenon, and also is some way to look to the country to see, okay, probably this is a stable country in which those guys can discuss things that are very important, but they can make some decision as a country, and they can go on those decisions, and probably that will make a quite a stable country in the next 30 to 40 years. I think that's also one of the things that the investors are looking at. We're trying to do that. We are helping as government in the sense that we hope to have a very good discussion, and we're quite confident in the sense that will be the case. So probably what we are seeing going to your question more further, one is the political process that is has a well pace to go, and also probably the consolidation on the fiscal side, that we know that we have this increase on debt, but even though we expect that the debt will stabilize in the next few years.
And I think the proof of the confidence of the market was the recent very, very successful issuance in dollars and euros, which were social and green bonds, and obviously were a very important point in the curve, as we say, basically a landmark transaction, which will open the opportunity. And there I wanted to have, again, two questions. One is sustainable finance. We know there is a very, very dedicated policy from the Ministry of Finance to basically make the economy greener, our race to zero as a country. And secondly, making the move of the internationalization of the Chilean peso market. You already mentioned a couple of things, and I would be very interested to know, will we push local green bonds, local certifications in order to do sustainable finance in the local market?
Yes, probably we will do that in the future, and in some way we feel that Chile, at least in Latin America, has been one of the countries has impulsed those green bonds and sustainable finance. And we think that we have been quite surprised in the sense that, well, of course, we have done those bonds, but the demand for those bonds has been really large, which is a very good news for us. And in some ways, it's meaning also that the world is also looking to Chile, and is also is very quite confident to what we are doing in Chile in terms of on green initiatives. Probably of course we will continue with that. We're very interested on that, and also we're very interested on having social bonds and sustainable support. We also need to provide some funds to finance initiatives, social initiatives, and in that sense, we also would like to see how the market perceive our initiatives. So probably we're going to do much more of that in the next few years and next few months, Monica.
We're looking forward, and obviously it's also important for the next generations. It's always perceived that financial sector is more for us who are older, but when we do things that connect the generations, it's always a nice thing. And I clearly see that there is a policy across all ministries. There is another thing which has an impact on all of our people, which is open banking, fintech, giving access. You mentioned it. Can you walk us a little bit through what the intention is of creating open banking and fintech?
Well, we have some firms that in some way is working in Chile on fintech and open banking, but what we do not have, completely have at least, is a regulatory space, so legal regulatory space. So what we usually do in Chile is that we provide some stable regulatory spaces for people that in some way are some knowledgeable rules for everybody, and in that way they can just do business as they want to do, but in that space. Okay, so probably what we're going to do in the next few months, I have been working on that with the team here in the Ministry of Finance. Is working on a legislative initiative on open banking and fintech. So it's quite probably that in the next few months we are going to enter into the Congress and to discuss that initiative in Congress, to have that set of rules that everybody will know and everybody will work in Chile using those rules. We think it's very important to have those rules, and we're trying to do it as fast as possible.
Excellent, and I'm sure there will be a very good reception from the banking and financial industry. I think we're coming more or less to an end, and I wanted to ask you, what will be the first thing you will do after the pandemic ends?
Well, probably I would like to go to my home to be with my family, and that's all. I mean, to be here in the ministry as a ministry is quite interesting job, probably the best job I could have. We are trying to do our best, but of course we know that this job is just for it's a period. That's good also. I mean, we need to have institution. We need to have some other person that are going to take our job after that. And as any other person, I would like to be with my family to have hopefully 1 month of vacation. That will be really good. But of course, we have to do a lot of job before that.
Exactly.
Part of my job is to be here, and I'm quite happy to be here and to talk a little bit about Chile. And I would like to thank you again to you, Monica, to invest, to provide this forum to talk about our country that we think is a good country to be here.
We all do everything for Chile. So thank you very much, Minister, and we will be continuing to see you on Chile Day. So again, our appreciation and thank you.
Thank you.